It's the middle of the night, and rain is hammering the earth so hard you can't hear yourself think. Thunder rolls somewhere over the hills. You're huddled under a rock overhang with your family, soaked to the bone. And in front of you sits the only thing standing between your children and death, a fire, and it's dying. Here's what your body already knows. Wet skin loses heat 25 times faster than dry skin. If this flame goes out, the cold doesn't just make you miserable, it starts a countdown. And you cannot make another fire. Not tonight, not in this storm. Every stick, every leaf, every blade of grass for miles is soaked through like a sponge. Rubbing wet wood together produces nothing but blisters and despair. One more thing. Beyond the edge of the firelight, something is watching. Leopards hunt in the rain. Hyenas love the dark. The only reason they haven't come closer is the flame. For ancient humans, this wasn't a bad camping trip. This was every single wet season. For months at a time, for hundreds of thousands of years. And tonight, this night, your night, is the night we're going to live through together. Because your fire has maybe 6 hours of fuel left, and the rain is not going to stop. Now, most people assume prehistoric humans just made a new fire whenever they needed one. Bang some rocks, rub some sticks, done. They're wrong. Completely wrong. Because scientists documented something that shocked them. Entire human societies, real, studied, documented people, living under some of the heaviest monsoon rainfall on Earth, who survived for thousands of years without ever learning how to make fire at all. Not once. They couldn't create a single flame from scratch, and yet they always had fire, through every storm, every monsoon, every endless gray week of rain. Hold on to that mystery, because by the end of this night, you'll know exactly who they were, how they did it, and why keeping a fire alive through endless rain might be the single most impressive prehistoric survival achievement in human history, and why you're only alive today because your ancestors pulled it off. First, understand what actually happens the moment the rain wins and a prehistoric fire dies. 3 clocks start ticking, all at once. Clock 1, the cold. Even in tropical regions, wet season nights drop low enough to kill. A soaked human on a cold, windy night doesn't just shiver. Their core temperature falls, their hands stop working, their thinking slows. Hypothermia can finish the job in hours. And remember, in the rain, everyone is already wet. The countdown starts faster. Clock 2, the predators. Big cats and hyenas aren't brave, they're calculators. They weigh risk against reward on every hunt, and a fire flips the math. The light, the smoke, the crackle, it all says, not an easy meal. Kill the fire, and the math flips back. And here's the part that makes it worse. Many predators prefer hunting in the rain. The downpour masks their sound. It washes away their scent. A storm isn't just your enemy, it's their ally. Clock 3, and this is the one almost nobody thinks about, the food. Ancient humans didn't just enjoy cooked food, their bodies depended on it. Cooking unlocks calories that raw food keeps hidden, and some scientists believe cooked food is the very reason our brains grew so large. Our stomachs are too small, our teeth too weak to survive long-term on raw, wild food. Which means the body you're sitting in right now was built on one assumption, that fire exists. You are, biologically, a creature of the flame. Fine, you're thinking, fire is life, so when the rain kills it, just make a new one. Here's the truth that survival TV shows hide from you. Friction fire is one of the hardest skills a human being can learn. Modern survival experts practice it for years and still fail. In perfect, bone-dry conditions. Here's what it demands. A drill, a straight, dry stick of exactly the right wood. Too hard and it polishes instead of grinding. Too soft and it crumbles. A hearthboard, another piece of dry wood, carved with a notch to catch the hot dust. Tinder, a bundle of bone-dry, fluffy material that can coax a fragile ember into flame. And technique, speed, pressure, rhythm. Get any of it wrong, and you'll spin that stick until your palms bleed and get nothing but smoke. But here's the killer detail. Every single one of those materials must be dry. Not mostly dry, bone dry. A few % of extra moisture, the humidity from a single rainy afternoon, and the friction can never build enough heat. The ember never forms. You fail. Again and again. Now picture the monsoon. Not one rainy afternoon, weeks of rain. The air itself so thick with water that even wood kept under shelter slowly drinks the dampness. everything on Earth soaked. Making a new fire in those conditions was, for most of human history, close to impossible. So ancient humans faced a terrifying equation. If the fire dies during the rains, it might stay dead until the sky clears, and the sky might not clear for weeks, all 3 clocks ticking the entire time. Back under your overhang, the storm is getting worse. The wind has shifted. Rain is blowing in sideways now, and every drop that reaches the coals makes that sound, the hiss, like a snake striking at your fire. Your flames have shrunk to half their height. You can't make a new fire, so there's only one option left. You have to become something else entirely. Not a fire maker, a fire keeper. But that raises an obvious question. If nobody could make fire, where did the first fires even come from? The answer, and this is the cruelest irony in this whole story, is the storm itself. Long before any human created a flame, nature was making fire constantly. Lightning strikes, volcanic eruptions, wildfires racing across dry grasslands. Scientists believe the earliest humans didn't invent fire at all. They stole it. Picture it. A thunderstorm passes. Lightning splits a dead tree, and it begins to burn. Every animal on the landscape runs away from that fire, except one. One strange, upright ape walks toward it. That single decision, an ancestor approaching the one thing every other creature on Earth flees, might be the most important moment in the history of life. Because that ancestor carried a burning branch back to their group, and suddenly they held the power of the sky in their hands. But nature plays a vicious joke. The same storms that deliver lightning also deliver rain. Think about what that means. The wet season, the season when your fire was most likely to die, was the exact season when replacement fires were hardest to find. Lightning in a downpour rarely starts a blaze the rain doesn't smother within minutes. The sky would flash all night long, fire crackling inside every thundercloud, and not one flame would survive to reach the ground. The storm dangles fire above you and drowns it before you can touch it. So a stolen flame was precious beyond words. It might be months before the sky offered another, which meant that from the very first day a human carried fire home, one rule was carved into our survival. You cannot make it. You cannot replace it. And the rain is coming for it every single year. So you must never let it die. And everything you're about to see, the fires buried alive to hide them from the rain, the ember a man carried through an alpine storm 5,000 years ago, the tribes who kept a single flame burning through centuries of monsoons, flows from that one rule. If forgotten survival secrets like these are your thing, subscribe now, because this channel digs up one every week. Now, back to your dying fire. Because the first great weapon against the rain starts with something that looks exactly like death. Ash. To you, ash is what's left when a fire dies. Garbage. The end. To an ancient human staring down a night of storms, ash was armor. Here's the trick, and it's genius. When heavy rain was coming, the firekeeper didn't fight to keep big flames roaring. Flames are actually fragile. They're hungry, they burn through fuel fast, and they present the largest possible target to the falling rain. Every raindrop that hits an open flame steals heat. In a hard downpour, a proud, tall fire can be beaten down in minutes. So the keeper did something that looks completely backwards. They buried the fire. They let the flames die down to a bed of glowing red coals, the hottest, densest part of any fire, then carefully covered those coals with a thick layer of ash. To an outsider, it looks like the rain already won. It didn't. The fire is asleep, hidden where the rain can't reach it. Ash is a phenomenal insulator. And here's the part almost nobody knows. It's also water-resistant armor. Rain hitting a bed of ash doesn't reach the coals underneath. The ash absorbs it, crusting over the top while the embers stay dry and glowing below. And by choking the oxygen supply, the ash forces the embers to stop burning fast and start smoldering slowly, like a phone dropping into power-saving mode. Survival experts still call this banking a fire. Done right, it holds living embers for 12 hours or more, long enough to outlast a storm night. Come morning, the keeper brushed away the wet ash crust, exposed the glowing coals, fed them dry tinder, blew gently, and the flame rose from its grave. No drilling, no struggle. Every rainy season, for thousands of generations. And this wasn't a short-term trick. In Qasim Cave in Israel, archaeologists found one central hearth used over and over for tens of thousands of years. Layer upon layer of ash, stacked like tree rings. Every one of those layers survived every storm of its era. And at Wunderwerk Cave in South Africa, traces of fire use go back roughly 1,000,000 years, older than our species itself. You didn't inherit firekeeping from humans. You inherited it from ancestors who weren't fully human yet. Under your overhang, you've done it. The coals are banked. The ash is mounded over them like a burial. The rain hisses against the crust and loses. For the first time tonight, you exhale. Then a flash of lightning lights up the valley, and in that half-second of white light, you see it. The river below your camp is rising. By tomorrow, this overhang could be underwater, which means tomorrow you move. In the rain, carrying fire. How is that even possible? In 1991, hikers in the Alps spotted a body melting out of the ice. At first, they assumed it was a lost climber. It wasn't. It was a man who died over 5,000 years ago, perfectly preserved. Scientists named him Ötzi the Iceman, and he became one of the most studied humans in history. Among his belongings, researchers found something strange: a small container of birch bark. Inside it, fragments of charcoal, carefully wrapped in fresh maple leaves. At first, it made no sense. Why would a man crossing freezing, storm-swept mountains seal leaves and charcoal in a container? Then it clicked. He was carrying fire. Not the idea of fire, living fire. A smoldering ember, wrapped in green leaves to throttle the airflow, sealed inside waterproof bark. Bark, nature's raincoat, to shield it from rain, sleet, and snow. A 5,000-year-old fire-carrying device. A portable ember that could be blown back into flame at any moment, no matter what the sky was doing. This was the ancient answer to rain on the move. If the sky is trying to kill your fire, you don't fight the sky. You shrink the fire down to a single glowing coal, wrap it like a newborn, and shield it with your own body if you have to. Marching through the downpour, hunched over that little bark container, a keeper carried the tribe's entire future against their chest. Tribes on the move assigned this job to one of their most trusted members, the ember carrier. Because think about the pressure. One stumble into a stream, one moment of carelessness in the rain, and the flame that had survived 100 storms dies in your hands. And the carriers had a secret weapon, one of the strangest materials in the ancient world. A mushroom that keeps burning, even in the rain-soaked air of a monsoon. Deep in the forests, growing on the sides of dead birch trees, there's a fungus shaped like a horse's hoof. Scientists call it Fomes fomentarius. Ancient humans knew it by what it did: tinder fungus. Cut it open, prepare the spongy layer inside, and you get a material with an almost magical property. It catches even the weakest spark, and then it refuses to die. It doesn't burst into flame, it smolders, slowly, steadily, hour after hour, creeping along like a lit cigarette. And here's the miracle. It keeps smoldering even when the air itself is heavy with rain. Damp, storm-soaked air that would suffocate an open flame barely slows it down. A prepared piece could carry fire through an entire day of marching through wet season downpours. And here's the proof of how vital it was. Ötzi was carrying tinder fungus too. Archaeologists keep finding it at ancient sites across Europe, clearly processed, clearly prepared, going back tens of thousands of years. Sit with that for a second. Ancient humans had studied their forests so deeply that they knew which mushroom, growing on which dead tree, prepared in which specific way, could hold a living ember through a rainstorm. That's not luck. That's Stone Age materials science, an entire technology built specifically to beat the rain. And remember those island tribes hammered by monsoons who never learned to make fire at all? Techniques exactly like this one are how they survived. We're getting close. Morning. The rain hasn't stopped. It's settled into that gray, endless drumming that can last for weeks. You brush back the wet ash crust. Underneath, coals, alive, glowing. But now you face the problem that kills more fires than the rain itself: fuel. Your fire survived the night, but it's hungry. And when you look out from under the overhang, everything you can see, every log, every branch, every twig on the forest floor, is drowned. An ember without fuel is just a countdown to darkness. So where do you find dry firewood in a world where everything is wet? The answer? You stop looking where you would look. Drop an untrained person in a rainforest during monsoon and tell them to gather firewood, and they'll do the obvious thing: pick wood up off the ground. And they'll fail. Ground wood is dead wood lying in a puddle. It's been drinking rain for weeks. It will hiss, smoke, and choke a fire to death. Ancient humans knew a secret survival instructors still teach today. Dry wood doesn't lie on the ground. It stands. Dead branches still attached to trees. Dead trees still upright. That wood is lifted off the flooded earth, drained by gravity, often sheltered from the falling rain by the living canopy above. Snap a standing dead branch, and the inside is frequently dry, even when the outside is dripping. And it gets better. Even rain-soaked wood is usually only wet on the outside. Weeks of storms soak a thin outer layer, while the core stays dry, protected by its own wet shell. So they split it. Crack a drowned log open, and inside, pale, dry wood, untouched by a single drop. Then there was the elite fuel, the stuff firekeepers treasured: resin wood. When certain trees are injured, they flood the wound with sticky resin, nature's own waterproofing. Wood saturated with it is essentially pre-soaked in fuel. It lights even when damp, burns hot, and laughs at the rain. Some cultures called it fat wood, and finding a good piece during the wet season was like finding treasure. Add birch bark, loaded with natural oils, so water-resistant that trees use it as their own raincoat. You can peel it off a trunk in the middle of a rainstorm and it will still take a flame. So the firekeeper's wet season day was a system. Hunt standing dead wood between downpours, split logs to the dry core, collect resin wood and bark, then stack tomorrow's fuel in a ring around tonight's fire, using today's flames to dry out wood the rain had already claimed. A rotating conveyor belt, the fire itself fighting back against the rain, reclaiming drowned fuel one log at a time. Miss one day and the whole system starts to collapse. But fuel was only half the war, because even perfect dry wood is useless if the storm can reach the fire itself. So where do you actually put a fire when the sky won't stop falling? This is where ancient humans became engineers, and every single rule was written by the rain. Rule 1. Never build where water flows. Sounds obvious, it isn't. In a downpour, water doesn't just fall, it moves. It sheets across the ground, pools in low spots, and creeps toward your hearth like a slow, silent assassin. A fire could be drowned from below while the keeper was busy defending it from above. Ancient camps that ignored this rule woke up to coals sitting in a puddle, so they raised their fires. Archaeologists have found ancient hearths built on stone platforms, gravel beds, mounded earth, drainage engineering, tens of thousands of years before anyone had a word for it. And the stones did double duty, lifting the coals above the floodline and soaking up heat to become radiators that kept the fire's heart warm even as the storm stole warmth from the air. Rule 2. Put a roof between your flame and the sky. Rock overhangs, cave mouths, dense canopy. These weren't convenient camping spots. They were fortresses in the war against the rain. And here's the detail that gives the game away. Scientists noticed that in ancient caves, the hearths are almost never deep inside. They're near the entrance. Why? Smoke. A fire deep in a cave can quietly poison everyone sleeping around it. Ancient humans found the sweet spot, close enough to the mouth for smoke to escape, far enough in that wind-driven rain couldn't reach the coals. Researchers have actually modeled the airflow in these caves and found the hearth positions ancient humans chose were close to optimal. No instruments, no sensors, just generations of storms, trial, error, and memory. Rule 3, the cleverest of all. Use the wind, don't fight it. Fire needs air, but wind-driven rain is a killer. It turns every raindrop into a projectile aimed at your coals. So keepers built windbreaks, stone, brush, hide, angled to block the storm while letting the fire breathe. Position it right, and the wall bounces heat back onto the sleeping tribe, doubling its warmth on the coldest, wettest nights. Raised platforms, systems, drainage, ventilation, heat reflectors, rain shields. That's architecture. And some scientists now believe we had the whole story backwards. Humans didn't build shelters and then add fires. We built shelters around fires to protect them from the rain. The flame came first. The home came second. Your house exists because of the storm. Night falls again on your camp. The rain is back to hammering. Thunder, closer now. Your fire sits raised on its stones, banked and shielded, fed with split-core wood. You've done everything right. But everything right requires one thing you can't engineer: a human being, awake, watching. Because tonight, somewhere out there in the storm, another tribe did everything almost right, and almost is about to cost them everything. Here's the scenario no one likes to imagine. The rain has lasted 2 weeks. The firekeeper got sick, or careless, or simply exhausted. In the middle of the night, with the storm drumming so loud it hides every other sound, water finds its way into the coal bed. Morning comes. The keeper brushes back the ash. Cold, gray, dead. No ember, no smoke, nothing. The tribe gathers around the drowned hearth, rain still falling on their shoulders, and everyone understands instantly. The sky won't clear for weeks. Nothing dry exists for miles. Fire cannot be made. The rain has won. And the 3 clocks start ticking. Night 1. The cold sinks into everyone's wet skin. 25 times faster, remember. Children press against their mothers. Nobody truly sleeps. Every snapped twig in the rain-hissing darkness could be a predator. And this time, there's no wall of light to hold it back. Night 2. The food problem arrives. Yesterday's meat can't be cooked. Eating it raw risks sickness. And sickness in the cold and wet, with no fire to warm a fevered body, is its own death sentence. The roots and tubers that fed the tribe all season are barely digestible raw. Stomachs stay empty with food sitting right there. Night 3. The predators have done the math. 3 nights of no light, no smoke, no crackle, and a storm masking their sound and washing away their scent. The camp that was not worth the risk has become the easiest meal in the valley. And tonight, under the cover of the rain, the eyes at the edge of the darkness are closer than they've ever been. So what does a fireless tribe do? This is where scientists discovered something that genuinely gives me chills. They went looking for fire from other humans, neighboring bands, rival tribes, groups they might normally avoid or even fear. Anthropologists studying traditional societies have documented exactly this behavior. When a group's fire died, they traveled, sometimes for days, through the same rain that killed their flame, to another camp and asked for embers. And here's the remarkable part. The other group almost always shared, even rivals, even strangers. Why? Because everyone knew the terrifying truth. Next monsoon, it could be them. Refusing to share fire was like refusing to throw a rope to a drowning man, and every tribe on Earth was one rainy night away from drowning. Some scientists believe this fire-sharing network was one of the earliest forms of long-distance cooperation between human groups, before trade routes, before alliances, before anything we'd call diplomacy. The first thing humans ever truly shared between tribes may have been a glowing coal handed over in the rain. But borrowed embers only solved the emergencies. The real war against the storm was fought every single night, inside the camp, while everyone else was asleep. Scientists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups made a strange discovery. They tracked the sleep of an entire community, expecting everyone to sleep through the night together. That's not what they found. At almost any hour of the night, someone was awake. Sleep schedules were naturally staggered. Some drifted off early, some stayed up late. Elders woke before dawn. Across hundreds of hours of observation, there were only a handful of minutes when every adult was asleep at the same time. Researchers called it the sentinel effect, a built-in night watch created by nature itself. Now think about what that meant during the wet season. The flame was never unguarded against the rain. There was always a pair of eyes near the coals. Someone to hear the hiss of a raindrop finding the firebed. Someone to feel the wind shift and pull the coals deeper under shelter before the storm blew sideways. Someone to feed a branch into the embers when the drumming on the rocks above got heavier. The fire kept the humans safe from the cold and the dark, and the humans in shifts kept the fire safe from the sky. A partnership running all night, every stormy night, for thousands of centuries. Some scientists even wonder if this shaped how we sleep today. That mysterious wave of alertness some people feel late at night? The grandmother inexplicably wide awake at 4 a.m. These may be echoes of the ancient rotation, a roster of fire watchers written into our DNA. Because in the rainy season, falling asleep at the wrong moment wasn't laziness. It was the mistake that could kill everyone you loved. And now, the discovery I promised you at the very beginning. The people who faced more rain than almost anyone on Earth and never learned to make fire at all. In the Bay of Bengal lies a chain of islands called the Andaman Islands. Understand what these islands are. Some of the most rain-hammered places on the planet. Monsoon season brings weeks of relentless downpour, the exact conditions that murder fires everywhere else on Earth. For thousands of years, isolated tribes lived there, cut off from the rest of the world. And when outsiders finally studied them in the 1800s, they reported something that stunned scientists. Some of these tribes had no method of making fire. None. No fire drill, no flint and steel, no friction technique. Hand them dry sticks and ask for a flame from nothing, they couldn't do it. And yet, they had fire, always, through every monsoon. They cooked with it, warmed themselves with it, lived around it every single day. How? Because they never, ever let it die. Everything you've watched tonight, they mastered all of it. Smoldering logs kept alive in camp through the downpours. Burning wood carried on the move, shielded from the rain with their own bodies. Embers stored in hollowed spaces where no water could reach. Fire passed camp to camp, family to family, generation to generation. An unbroken relay race run against the sky itself. Now absorb what that means. Every fire in those camps was potentially the descendant of a flame that had been burning, without interruption, through centuries of monsoons, maybe far longer. A living chain of fire, handed down like a family heirloom, stretching back further than anyone could remember. A child in that tribe could warm their hands on the same unbroken fire their great-great-great-grandparents once guarded through storms nobody alive had ever seen. That's how good ancient humans became at keeping fire alive in endless rain. So good that some of them skipped fire-making entirely, because in a war against the heaviest rainfall on Earth, their fire simply never lost. And this should change how you see your ancestors forever. We imagine cavemen as brutes, grunting, club-swinging, simple. But look at what beating the rain actually required. Planning days ahead, stockpiling and drying fuel before the storms hit. Engineering, raised hearths, drainage, rain shields positioned for airflow. Materials science, knowing exactly which fungus, which bark, which resin-soaked wood keeps burning when the whole world is wet. Social structure, trusted keepers, rotating night watches, rules about who tends the flame. And something deeper still, cooperation between strangers, built on the unspoken agreement that fire is shared, because the rain comes for everyone. Every rainy season was a test. And here's the brutal truth. The groups that failed it disappeared. Cold nights, raw food, and predators hunting under the cover of the storm saw to that. Which means every generation, the flame was guarded by the descendants of people who had never let the rain win. You are the product of an unbroken chain of successful fire keepers. Every single one of your direct ancestors, going back hundreds of thousands of years, lived in a group that kept the flame alive through every storm, every monsoon, every endless gray week of rain. Not one of them failed, because if they had, you wouldn't be here. One last time, your overhang, your night. Somewhere before dawn, the drumming on the rocks begins to soften. The thunder moves off over the hills. And when the first gray light comes, you kneel at the mound of wet ash and brush back the crust. Underneath, a heartbeat of orange. The coals are alive. The rain threw everything it had at you and lost. You feed the embers dry tinder from the stack you protected all night. You blow, gently, and as your family stirs awake, a flame rises from its grave, same as it did yesterday, same as it will tomorrow, same as it did for 100,000 years of storms before you. So how did ancient humans keep fire alive in endless rain? They buried their coals under blankets of ash that armored them against the downpour. They carried living embers through storms in waterproof bark, wrapped in green leaves, sheltered against their own bodies. They pressed a smoldering fungus into service, one that burns through rain-soaked air. They read the drowned forest like a manual, standing deadwood, split cores, resin wood, oily bark. And they built fire-sharing networks with strangers because a drowned hearth was a death sentence and everyone knew it. They didn't beat the rain with technology. They beat it with obsession. Total, multi-generational, never-blink obsession. And that obsession is still inside you. Ever notice what happens when you sit near a campfire, especially when it's raining outside? Your shoulders drop, your heart rate slows. Scientists have measured it. Watching a fire lowers blood pressure and calms the human body in a way almost nothing else can. That's not a coincidence. That's hundreds of thousands of years of evolution whispering, "The fire is lit. You're safe. The rain can't hurt you tonight."